in and around Taiwan continues. But we now move on to Europe, and Russia has rejected US proposals to end the war in Ukraine, saying they failed to address the root causes of the conflict. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov stated that Moscow cannot accept the terms in their current form, signalling a deadlock in negotiations. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to discuss the deployment of a foreign troop contingent in Ukraine with allied nations on April the 4th, a move strongly opposed by Russia. This is what Zelensky and the German Foreign Minister have said.
Підійшли до моменту збільшення санкційного впливу, тому що я вважаю, що русські порушують те, що вони пообіцяли Америці. Принаймні те, що Америка сказала нам і публічно. Ми з вами, я думаю, в одній інформаційній площині знаходимося з цього приводу. І ми дуже надіємося, що президент Трамп, у нього є всі ці відповідні інструменти, щоб посилити санкційний тиск на російську сторону.
Like Ukraine bedeutet eben auch, Kinder und Jugend zu unterstützen. Wir haben heute erneut verschleppte Kinder getroffen. Diese zurückzuholen wäre der erste Schritt zu Frieden. Dass Putin stattdessen weiterhin angreift und bombardiert, macht deutlich, dass er derzeit keinen Frieden will. Die Ukraine hat einem bedingungslosen Waffenstillstand zugestimmt.
In a major military expansion, President Vladimir Putin has ordered the conscription of 160,000 men, the largest recruitment drive in years, as part of his goal to surpass the US military in size. Amid ongoing hostilities, Moscow insists it is upholding a US-brokered moratorium on energy strikes, despite accusations from Kyiv. Ukraine, in turn, has urged Washington to strengthen sanctions on Russia for allegedly violating agreements reached in Saudi Arabia. Let's listen in to what Russian leader Vladimir Putin has said.
Хотел бы задать вопрос белорусу Андрею Рамовичу по поводу того, как у нас исполняются договоренности, связанные с прекращением взаимных ударов по энергосистемам между Россией и Украиной.
As tensions escalate, both Ukraine and Russia have lodged complaints with the US over energy site attacks. Here is what Zelensky said on the matter.
Для нас слів замало, при всій повазі до наших стратегічних партнерів. Для нас дуже важливі санкції, тому що те, про що ми говорили з Америкою, ми робимо. Те, що Росія домовляла з Америкою, вони не роблять і постійно порушують. Страждаємо тільки ми. Страждає сьогодні Україна, українські люди. Тому ми дуже сильно чекаємо серйозної демонстрації.
Well, separately, Putin welcomed Bosnian Serb leader Milorad Dodik to the Kremlin, reinforcing ties despite an international arrest warrant against Dodik. Well, joining us to discuss all of these developments is Dr. Punsara Amarasinghe, Katawala Defence University in Colombo. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Amarasinghe. We have to look first at these comments from Russia saying that they're not ready in the current form to sign a peace deal. Do you think Putin is ever going to sign a ceasefire agreement?
I don't think so. The Putin has not shown any considerable stances in going with the Saudi Arabian deal. It is kind of a pretext. And what he wants is somehow to accomplish the military objectives of the Russian Federation, which they espoused, which they started as a special military operation. And also, if you have keenly observed the situation in Russia, since 2011, the Russian Federation has made an audacious decision by increasing the army conscription, right? So the maximum age to join the army was initially age 27. Now it has been increased up to age 30, which is a considerable move. And I cannot see any peace negotiation or Putin's willingness to go ahead with the ceasefire agreement, given the fact that Russia is fully prepared to improve its military capabilities. Because there are two important factors which we cannot avoid. Firstly, despite having had the territorial successes for past few months, Russian army has undergone considerable losses. right? There have been multiple casualties. So they need to upgrade their military, they need to upgrade their infantry. So with that expectations, they are encouraging the young Russians to join the forces. And second, while sending the Russian army to the front in the Ukraine, they're looking forward to secure their large number of borders shared with the NATO countries, particularly Baltic states such as the Finland. So these are the objectives coming from the Russian war machinery in Moscow.
Yes, absolutely. We've been seeing on screen visuals of several European leaders. Given the fact that the US have had these talks and these ceasefire negotiations, one looking at energy sites and making sure strikes aren't hitting those, both sides say that either one has done exactly that. Do you think Europe now needs to step up and be part of these ceasefire negotiations to try and push it over the line?
Yes, because you see, 24 hours ago, the Ukrainians were lynched by attacking the energy infrastructure side. And 1 week ago, Russia did the same. In Ukraine, it's kind of a tits for tats moment. But if you see what was agreed at the Saudi Arabian agreements, even though it was not declared to be a fully fledged agreement, the Trump made both parties not to attack on the energy infrastructure, which is quite vulnerable in Eastern Europe when it comes to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. But both sides have blatantly violated that. So it is going to be a stand hold for the peace apparatus. And I certainly assume that the ceasefire agreements or whatever the discussions stemmed from the Saudi Arabian agreements, the Saudi Arabian discussions brokered by Donald Trump will not come to a better end.
Yes, and Dr. Amarasinghe, to bring this conversation to a conclusion, Volodymyr Zelensky talking about the need for further sanctions on Russia. What else can Donald Trump do aside from sanctions to try and push this forward, where we're seemingly again at an impasse where all of his conversations have ultimately amounted to very little?
Precisely. Looking at the Russian economy since 2022, regardless of the sanctions imposed by both the US under Joe Biden and the NATO countries and also EU, the Russian economy has not been completely stagnated, right? They have dramatically increased the defense budgets and the military conscription is going on. And in addition to that, Russia has aptly manipulated countries such as India and Brazil in the BRICS to stand firm with them. So international consensus is not entirely antagonistic. It doesn't stand against Russia, right? So despite having made all the requests from Ukrainian side, even though Zelensky insists that Russia should be imposed further sanctions, the Russian war effort is likely to continue. And what perhaps, at a larger scale, maybe since the arrival of Donald Trump, which has created unprecedented changes in the global politics, European Union, countries such as France and Germany, and also the United Kingdom might continue to tighten their sanctions against the Russian Federation, but in my point of view, which will not have long-term consequences upon the overarching apparatus of the Ukrainian conflict. So that is a fact on the ground.
Dr. Amarasinghe, thank you very much for your time and for that insight on the Russia-Ukraine war as these conversations and fight